Today on the Daily Charge, Dish scoops up prepaid division from T-Mobile, a new crazy cheap Netflix, Apple buying Intel's mobile business, and Facebook walloped with a massive $5 billion fine.
Good morning and welcome to CNET's Daily Charge. It's Wednesday, July 24th. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
Let's take a look at today's headlines. Dish has reportedly agreed to pay $5 billion for spectrum and prepaid mobile businesses from T-Mobile and Sprint, clearing the way for its own $26.5 billion mega mobile merger. Now, Ayaz, this has been like a long time coming. It's been more than a year at this point. Like, I feel like it's actually happening, and I can't believe it.
With Sprint and T-Mobile finally getting together, those
Yeah.
two star-crossed lovers.
Yes.
I'm more interested in seeing what Dish was going to do with their spectrum. There were all these rumors earlier this month that somebody at Google was talking to them about that, but then Google vehemently denied it. So we'll see if something comes of it.
What's interesting about this deal, and it is right now, it's still based on a Bloomberg report, so we haven't confirmed it yet, but the interesting hook there is the sale has a no resale clause for 3 years. So Dish has to keep this for 3 years, so they do kind of have to start their own business in earnest. Dish has been sitting on a pile of wireless spectrum, and this is largely what this deal is about, is getting spectrum. And they haven't done anything with it.
Well, they could lease it, right? They can keep it and
No,
just lease
so
it out.
this is the problem. They've got spectrum that the FCC has mandated that they need to use for a network by next year.
That's amazing.
They haven't even built anything yet.
It means we're getting a new carrier.
Maybe.
Competition. Or not.
What the reports have talked about Dish getting a resale agreement with Sprint and T-Mobile. So potentially, yes, we could see a number 4 wireless carrier, a new number 4 wireless carrier, potentially with cheaper wireless plans.
Impressive.
Next up, Netflix launched a crazy low $3 monthly plan, but sadly, this option is only available in India. It's only standard definition and runs on your phone, but I imagine there'd be a lot of folks who'd want to jump on this plan here in the US.
Yeah, right now there's no plans to bring this plan outside of outside of India. It definitely seems like a move because Netflix has such a large subscriber base. How do you make it larger?
Yep.
They did report like a slowing user base.
Right, it's the first time ever they had subscriber losses, which is a big deal for a growth company like Netflix. So yes, tapping into the population of India, which definitely probably can't afford the more expensive plans that we're used to, but doing it in this kind of limited way, I still think this is an option that would be great everywhere.
$3 a month for one device? Sounds all right.
All right. Also today, the Wall Street Journal reports that Apple is close to buying Intel's modem business for $1 billion. Our own Shar Tipkin breaks down why Apple would even be interested in this deal. Largely, it comes down to making their own modems and getting into 5G in their own way, right?
Yeah, right now, Apple makes their own processors, but they don't make their own modems, so they have to have both components in the phones. In theory, if you can integrate both of them, you should have a more battery-efficient device. And iPhones are pretty well known for their good battery life.
Right.
Changing this up, if they do buy Intel's modem technology, perhaps they could have a new thing to be bragging about.
And look, all Android phones now, or most Android phones, use a integrated processor or modem. Qualcomm Snapdragon chips all have both modems and processors. That's why they tend to run pretty efficiently. But and Apple still uses Qualcomm for its modem. I think they'd really want to have a second supplier, second source for that modem business.
Yeah, after their what would the fracas between Qualcomm and Apple, perhaps they would be like, hey, by the way, we happen to own these patents. Maybe we can work a deal out better.
All right, lastly, our main story. Today is all about Facebook. Facebook will be paying the price for its lax treatment of our data. The company has settled with the Federal Trade Commission for a record $5 billion. Furthermore, CEO Mark Zuckerberg will be personally responsible for certifying that the company is following the terms of the settlement each quarter. What do you think? $5 billion, is that enough? It seems like a big number, but is it enough?
On its own, right? So you were looking into some context. What did Facebook earn last quarter?
So it pulled in $15 billion in revenue.
In full revenue. So $5 billion does sound like a lot on its face, but when you compare it to a revenue in a quarter, this doesn't seem like that big a deal. The question is whether Facebook is truly going to change their privacy plans because of this. What is this going to mean for Facebook products? I know Mark Zuckerberg had his own post explaining if we're trying to comply with this kind of privacy, it might take us a little longer to come out with products, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, which
in
is
any
okay.
way.
We're fine with that. I think that speaks to the mentality of the company. Is they were famous for sort of the move fast, break things mentality. And they're starting to realize maybe that's not the best idea when you're dealing with so much of our personal information.
As this company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, there's going to be all kinds of ways to try to get apps out. So the idea of growth versus responsibility is a huge thing here. So Facebook already has, I don't even know if it's a critical mass of people yet. So the fact is, the more we keep seeing bad news about them, I'm curious about whether this is going to lead to people going, I'm not using this service anymore, I'm afraid. Do you think this will have any stigmatizing effect any further on Facebook?
So far there hasn't actually been an effect, right? Their users continue to grow, and we'll actually get more insight into this later today. Facebook reports its quarterly earnings results after the bell. So we'll see if the growth has continued, but for whatever reason, it seems like they've been relatively controversy-proof. Like there's been a lot of talk, they're seeing all this pressure from government, from regulators all around the world, but in terms of their actual user base, it continues to grow, which is kind of a fascinating contradiction.
Do you think that people aren't noticing this, or they just don't care?
I think it's a little bit of both, for sure. I think people generally get that maybe they're giving up too much information to Facebook, but they also know that it's oftentimes the only way to connect with folks around the world, relatives, friends, and it's become like almost too important to give up.
Yeah, it seems like Facebook for some people has become the internet, and they don't want to lose it at all because that's how they stay in touch with everybody. The idea that there's an internet outside of Facebook, it's like the old AOL days where people are like, oh, you can go outside of this?
Right.
But then again, Facebook could be, for some people, it's everything to some people.
So it's interesting, what I found interesting was the hook that they basically made, they put Zuckerberg on the hook personally for certifying these privacy policies that the FTC is mandating are actually being put in place every single quarter. That potentially leaves him up to personal liability, which is unusual for these kinds of settlements. Usually executives are not, they're insulated from personal liability.
That explains why on Zuckerberg's post on Facebook, it said that he's setting up a new privacy committee on the board.
Yep.
They're also going to get a experienced product leader to take on the chief privacy officer. So what he's going to do is make sure that everybody around him is privacy conscious, because if something goes wrong, he's in a lot of trouble. So he's building these layers of hopefully, intelligent people that are willing to slow production down to make sure privacy is important. That would keep Zuckerberg out of the line of fire.
Yep, totally. All right, so to recap, everyone is buying everyone else. TV only matters if it's on your phone, and Facebook has dug a hole so deep that even Zuckerberg's now on the hook for any future problems. But if anyone wants to dig a little deeper, we do have links through to all these stories down in the description below. Thanks as always to everyone for joining us here live. We stream weekday mornings at 11:15 a.m. on YouTube, Periscope, and CNET.com/dailycharge. If you get a chance, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter while we grow our channel. Now, as always, we delve into the chat to take your questions and comments to keep the conversation going. What are your thoughts on Facebook's punishment? Is it enough? Brian, can you jump in whenever you have something?
Oh, let's jump. First and foremost, is Facebook going to pay their fine using Libra?
Oh, good question.
Technically, no, they can't now.
They can't. It will be in actual currency.
Well,
U.S. dollars.
Recognized.
Right. Keep in mind, Facebook has already set aside this like they knew this was coming. They basically said, we're going to open a little account here, a little savings account, put all our money in there. We're going to pay the government when necessary. Like I said, given the $15 billion in revenue posted last quarter, it's a big number, but it's not lethal. It's not critical to it's not a critical blow to Facebook.
The main story though is Libra's not being used right now.
Libra's not being used anywhere.
Yeah,
is really
the
main point. Yes.
All right, first real question coming from Yan. Let's take it back. It's from Yan. I'm completely all over the place today. Will this FTC fine likely increase the likelihood of some antitrust breakups for Facebook?
Ooh, I don't think this fine will have an impact on it, but it's a great question because the Justice Department filed a separate investigation into large online platforms. They announced that yesterday night. They didn't specifically mention any companies, but they did say social commerce and search. So really pointing at Google, the big ones: Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon. And so the antitrust conversation is definitely here. I think it's just going to get louder. We're going to hear a lot more about this as time goes on.
I don't think it's related directly to the FTC's fine because that's more about protecting consumers. And yes,
right.
The DOJ is in theory protecting consumers if you have something that's built into a trust or a monopoly that can be an issue. But I don't know if these are particularly related. If their privacy violations somehow led to a larger market share such that Facebook became the dominant platform in social, I mean, that's, as far as I'm thinking right now, seems like a stretch. because I don't think violations of privacy caused Facebook to get larger. So perhaps these things will happen at the same time, but I don't know if they're related.
No, I think, and it also speaks to the fact that there are just so many problems that they have to be tackled like individually. Like, and I agree. I think the antitrust concerns. It's more about whether or not these companies are using their power and influence to stifle competition, stifle competitive choice for consumers.
And we've had social choices. We've got Twitter still. It's somehow still going. We've got Google's newest shoelace thing, which is a totally different thing.
Keep in mind, though, like in terms of the ad revenue, right? Like Google and Facebook basically own the ad market, and everyone else is kind of playing for third fiddle. So there's definitely arguments that these companies do wield a huge amount of influence.
All right, next question is coming in from Imagine Sagi. He says this is interesting. They needed to hold their executives accountable, like with the Wells Fargo fraud scandal. Do you think this ruling is going to set any sort of precedent going forward?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. That's a really good question. In terms of, I'm not a regulatory expert by any means, although I pretend to be one. But it's unclear at this point. This was a pretty exceptional situation. I don't know if it serves as a precedent, or it's the fact that there's just so much heat on Facebook, and they kind of saw what was coming down, and they kind of agreed to this extraordinary term.
It might have been because if Facebook didn't agree to this kind of level of liability, that the fine would have been larger, which could have been something. Like, imagine if it was $8 billion or $8.5, so it's half the revenue. It becomes a little bit larger because that's how people would be talking about it, because it's a third of the revenue, which is still substantial. That's only a quarterly revenue. So this is probably essentially a good deal for Zuckerberg. I would imagine that in the future we're going to see a lot more committees insulating, just the same kind of way. You're going to have the privacy committee, the people that or the people that serve as your privacy officers, and then they report to Zuckerberg. That kind of layering will probably become normal if it's not already normal.
Yeah, and look, I think it is an extraordinary situation. I think so. It's hard to say whether or not like this will get applied to like the banking industry or whatever industry gets on the hook next. So, yeah, great question though.
Really good question. Storm King says, if you can't uninstall Facebook app from your phone, does that count as monopolizing social media?
Ooh,
that's fun. That's like the Microsoft Internet Explorer kind of idea. If you can't uninstall it, not necessarily. If it's the only way to get on, maybe. I mean, if Facebook had its own version of Android and Facebook was the only way to do it, maybe I think that's a bit of a stretch as well, because as long as it doesn't stop you from downloading something else, I think that would be the issue. And the other thing is Facebook doesn't have an operating system like Microsoft did, where they had Internet Explorer built in, to the point that the EU, or maybe it wasn't the EU yet, but it was Europe, had made Microsoft make a version of Windows without Internet Explorer.
Right.
So then you could choose from Netscape or whatever it was at the time. So I don't think it would be a monopoly if Facebook is uninstallable, because there are also crapware
and bloatware
on wireless carriers all the time. So it's not a monopoly. It's just kind of like, hey, you signed up for a service. Here's your crappy free
here's
Verizon
your version
thing.
of the address book that we created that's supposed to replace the Android one. Like, I think the bloatware thing is less of an issue, but they were annoying. I'll give you that. Bloatware in general is just annoying. I'm not a big fan.
Srinjoy wants to know if you think Zuck is going to crack anytime soon, specifically in regards to the upcoming September 20th date. That's the Area 51 event, if you weren't aware.
No. I think Zuck came out relatively well. There were critics who were disappointed that this fine was as low as it was. Like, it could have been much higher, based off of sort of the calculation of like the violations versus the number of users. So I think he relatively came out okay. I mean, the personal liability thing that's definitely an interesting wrinkle, but otherwise, I don't think he's going to be cracking anytime soon.
I think if he was going to crack, he would have done it like at these hearings where he's being grilled by lots of people who have no idea how the internet works.
I think that empowered him, frankly. I think halfway through, he realized these guys have no idea what they're talking about. I'm just going to talk circles around them.
But that seemed like under that amount of pressure, you've had all your coaching already. You have your bullet points. He's not as poised as, I'm forgetting her name, Sarah something, Sandberg.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Sorry, thank you. Sheryl. She's always very composed when she speaks.
Absolutely.
And Zuckerberg is not that kind of person. I don't know if him to have a temper or anything like that, but I don't see any crazy posts coming from him like, dag nab you, $5 billion fine.
Right.
He probably has enough of a team, another insulation layer of do not post this.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably quite well handled.
Mm-hmm.
Did you really just use the phrase "dag nabbit"?
He did.
Me? Yeah,
That's
probably.
a thing.
Wow. Okay, so we're going down that path.
But he's envisioning Zuckerberg using that term, so it's okay.
Is that in his operating
it's-
system?
It's in my vocabulary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's definitely. I don't think it's in his vocabulary.
I
Could
got
you imagine Zuckerberg saying "dang nabbit"?
I got a kid. I got to do softwares. I can't
Right,
do
that's
too
true.
many.
All right. Yan says, not often do I get to see the Alphabet City guy. Can I ask if you guys think there will be a Pixel Watch this year? Also, will
sure you can
Project Solace?
Project Soli, will that come to
Will that get a launch this year?
two different questions? So we've got the Pixel Watch. I'm going to say no, that's not happening yet, because the Pixel 4 might theoretically have Project Soli in it. Project Soli is this radar-based gesture recognition system that's supposed to be far and away better than the camera-based ones that we've seen on other devices. So in theory, you could interface with your phone without having to touch it. So, and now that sounds a little strange, but like imagine it's in your pocket, you can like lower the volume by just moving a slider on your own finger, no less.
Oh, really?
So it's a totally different style of it, based on the filings and based on what Google's gotten approved of from, I want to say the FCC, because there's an extra bit of power that's involved there. I think that's much more likely because this touchless interface would be a huge step forward, and then a Pixel Watch in the future that takes advantage of it because people already know what it is. Maybe that'll make sense. But when they do a 1-2 punch, here's Soli and Soli, I don't know.
Changing gears over to Netflix in India. Srinjoy asks, do you think Indian servers will shoot up in VPNs following this?
Well, Netflix have a really strong thing with VPNs in
Yeah.
general. They're always playing cat and mouse with that.
Yes.
So
They're usually pretty savvy about blocking those VPNs.
at this
though.
point.
Yeah.
So will they pop up there so you can get a $4 one? You
So
can
is
watch.
that is the idea that you would go to India, sign up for this plan, and then like VPN back into India to access the plan?
I think so. So
Yeah.
you sign up for the $3
I don't.
plan.
Yeah, Netflix has been pretty good at cracking down on those kinds of like reverse.
On top of that, there's going to be a question as to the global catalog versus the catalog you want to see.
Would get.
Yeah, because I think Friends is leaving Netflix in the U.S., but it will be available on Netflix globally past a certain
true.
thing. So in theory,
Or Star Trek Discovery, which is a CBS show, which is
That's on
our
Netflix
parent
elsewhere,
company.
yeah.
It's on Netflix elsewhere, but not here in the
so the
US.
catalog might be a little different, but will
Right.
people be VPNing into India to sign up and have an address?
I mean, $3 a month. I guess it's worth trying.
I think at that point, if you're paying for the VPN and Netflix, you might as well just have Netflix.
That's true.
You also want to make sure that your logs aren't being, you're not being logged, so you
Right,
should be
right.
paying for a reputable VPN. If you're going to go do this, do it smart.
Yeah.
You know, I usually frown upon conspiracy theorists, but when you hear about stuff like how CBS All Access produces Discovery and the new Picard show, you go outside of the U.S. to get Discovery, you got to get Netflix, and now if you go outside the U.S. to get Picard, you got to get Amazon Prime. I really sometimes wonder if there's this like inner Illuminati streaming, like, we're going to make you pay for cable as if you had it all along.
That's one way to put it. I just think this is extreme negotiations
Yeah.
between companies and figuring out what's the best revenue streams. And
And keep in mind, these viewers are in different countries, so they're basically different audiences. So it's not necessarily like there isn't a lot of that cross. Like you need to get both this and that because it
You're
really is
seeing
different.
more of it, though.
Your experience
like,
is different depending on where you live, though.
True, that's very true. It feels more and more like, cut the cord, fine, we're going to get your money anyways.
well, yeah, the modern streaming services, it used to be like, okay, we'll have a la carte stuff. I only want to
Right.
pay for HBO, I get HBO. And that was actually pretty cool.
Right.
Now it's going to be HBO Max, or whatever the new one is going to
Right.
be, which is going to have a bunch of other stuff. So they are bundling and bundling and bundling, but that's also part of this consolidation culture that's happened.
Yeah. Well, no. In general, though, we've it definitely has gotten worse. Like we basically got what we wanted. We wanted a la carte. Now we have it, and it's actually kind of crazy expensive, right? If you bundle together CBS All Access, Netflix, Amazon Prime, now you've got HBO Max, you've got NBC's service, you've got Disney Plus, you've got Hulu, you've got all these services that when you add together, actually is probably a lot more expensive than your normal cable bill.
You know, it's funny that Disney's Bob Iger mentioned, this is before they not fully acquired, but planned to acquire Hulu. He mentioned that if there was a bundle, they would put Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus together.
Yes.
So they're going to bundle their own streaming services in a new bundle that you could buy yourself. So we've become the actual like cable company ourselves because we're picking the bundles.
Yes.
And we're like, we'll pay you directly for the carriage fees. We're paying carriage fees, that's right?
Pretty much, yeah.
There we go.
Where the cable industry's back in just a different form with different players.
We're just people.
With blackjack and hookers. Is bundle going to be the new industry buzzword?
Bundle?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
it's always been there, but
it's not new. It's been an industry buzzword for like the last 2 decades.
Important for antitrust as well if you're bundling things together. So,
but with the antitrust and all these streaming services coming in a
I
package,
think when
you
it
think
comes
it's
to
going to
media,
be
for sure, bundle
more
has
buzzworthy?
always been a buzzword.
All right.
I think it's more of a term of art, isn't it? Might be lingo. Not a
Lingo?
buzzword, yeah.
Maybe not a buzzword. You're right. It's jargon.
Jargon. There we go. Okay, last question before we wrap it up for the day. There are rumors flying around that Google is somehow involved with this Dish deal. Is there any validation to that?
No, so Google has emphatically denied that they are part of this, that they talked to them. My guess is probably that's Charlie Ergen, the wild man Charlie Ergen, like floating up these balloons just to get a reaction. But Google has basically said no, they're not interested in it. And again, if the report is correct, the Bloomberg report is correct, there's a no resale clause for 3 years. That means these guys can't even be part of this deal for a while anyways, and Ergen actually has to build out a wireless service.
Great questions all around today, folks. Definitely making us think about things that didn't really cross my mind, at least right out the gate. So yeah, thanks as always for contributing. We'll hopefully see you again here tomorrow. Tell your friends. We want to grow the audience base. We love all of you. We want more of you. There's never enough. We have so much love to give. And on that note, Roger, send us home.
On that amazingly touching note, thank you again for joining us. Tag us online and let us know what you want to see more or less of here on the show. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Isaac.
Thanks for listening.